welcome to this special episode of Talkback. This episode is specifically dealing with a topic that we brought up many talkbacks ago. Well, not many talkbacks ago, but it's been a month since we, talked about the issue of this Sarah Connor Chronicles. This very shaky idea that some executive somewhere dreamt up for the Terminator franchise, which personally I thought was dealt the nail in the coffin with T3, with that whole Christina Loken ridiculousness and whatnot. But that's another topic. Well, we've already put on the table our views on the validity of trying to take Terminator to the TV screens, which I personally feel is quite ridiculous. See, the first thing that we have to actually appreciate here is that, you see, there are some things that cannot be turned into a teeny oriented or popcorn-ish television show. Some things cannot be taken from the big screen and turned into like a weekly TV show. And I believe that Terminator is one of those things. You know what, look, at the end of the day, a lot of people are going to be against that standpoint, which is fair enough. Everybody has a right to their own opinion. I'm just going to try and take this whole situation back. Because, you see, I'm one of those guys who started from the beginning. I'm an older guy, started with T1, 84, 83, whenever that, early 80s when that came out. It was a very raw action movie, at the end of the day. The special effects were not like fantastic per se. It was very bare bones action, violence, whatever you want to call it. But the thing is that it had a very serious core and soul to the movie, which is the reason why it struck a chord with all action fans out there, all Arnold. It actually really solidified Arnold Schwarzenegger as like an action star, Now, the thing about these franchises that people have to accept is the fact that once you start a franchise, even the concept of the word franchise, it means that you've ingrained some kind of law, some kind of story arc, some kind of world where fans now accept that there are rules. You know what I'm saying? Like Matrix world has its rules, okay? Star Wars has its rules, okay? Batman has its rules. You don't start breaking rules that you've created whereby all the fans of this series have this sort of appreciation of what can and can't happen in the world that you've made and expect people to accept it. Now, let us now transfer that ideology onto Sarah Connor Chronicles. You see, I actually did not want to watch this thing because I felt like it was stupid for them to even consider trying to bring a series about Sarah Connor. We all watched T1 and T2, right? There were no more Terminators sent back. That was the point of T2. The point of T2 is that it was the last ditch and they survived. That's it. That's how the movie ended. That was actually a reason why a lot of people complained about T3, because it's like, wait a minute, we just watched T2, this epic battle that you had in LA, whereby T1000, this ridiculously advanced Terminator, came back to try and kill John Connor. You survived that, and at the end of the movie it was like, that's it. He survived, this guy's going to lead the armies, whatever. And you found a way to bring another Terminator back again. First of all, T3 was ridiculous because it just showed that these guys couldn't actually come up with new ideas and new stories. That's the first thing. Second thing of it was that the script was bad. Third thing was that it actually didn't make any continuity sense based on the linking of T3 to T2. And the fourth thing is that, okay, look, even if you want to accept T3 as like, this movie has happened, can't you remember how T3 ended? It was over. These guys were trapped in a bunker. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Maybe these guys are now trying to tell us, like they always do, when a movie doesn't do that well, disregard it. T3 never happened. This is basically after T2. So anyway, look, yesterday I'm on Yahoo, whatever, looking online, and I got told that, you know what? Any fan of Terminator has to watch Sarah Connor Chronicles. So I'm like, you know what? Fine, fair enough. They say you have to watch it because, you know what? It's like a fence thing. You're either on one side or you're on the other side. And the key is, when you go online and you talk to all the forums and you're talking to all the fans of Terminator, the guys who are against it are like the hardcore guys, like the guys who've been fans of T1, T2, like from the beginning. Guys who actually really respect the theories and sort of the storyline and basis behind this movie. Like, I'm thinking that James Cameron's got to be really angry because this guy created these characters, took all this trouble to build up a franchise up to T2, and these guys just coming and ravaging the whole thing. So I'm watching this thing and I'm like, okay, the premise. First of all, we've got the marketing campaign, which I thought was horrible. I mean, we talked about this on another talkback about how you're looking at these commercials, you're looking at these posters and looking at this stuff and you're saying that why are they marketing Terminator like this? It looks like an FHM cover or like a Vanity Fair or whatever you want to call it. How is Sarah Connor going to look like this? How? I mean, I'm going to talk about casting later, but just on the surface, the visuals, images that you're seeing is absolutely ridiculous. Okay? Because I saw that, and that alone made me say, you know what, I can't watch this series. What happened to all the grittiness of Terminator's like an R-rated, hardcore, blood violence action movie? How are we getting it to... How is this on primetime TV with what... Anyway, look, fine. So we start off this thing, and I'm like, okay, look, you are now basically trying to tell me that a whole bunch of Terminators now got sent back and like blah, 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 blah. So I'm watching this thing and it begins, you know what, look, this spoilers, so if you haven't actually seen Sarah Connor Chronicles, fair enough, but you might want to turn off because now I'm going to actually talk about this pilot episode. Look, a lot of guys can't even be bothered, but I will say that this is probably one of the worst travesties in the history of fandom, the worst travesties in the history of the Terminator franchise, and in fact in any franchise, where you just say guys come in and just disrespect the entire story arc. Because we're starting off now with Sarah Connor living with this guy who is proposing marriage to her in this house somewhere, having been on the run after the events of T2. Now guys, we all watched T2. At the beginning of T2, where was Sarah Connor? I'll tell you where Sarah Connor was. Sarah Connor was in a psych ward. She was basically crazy, getting injected with all kinds of drugs, basically doing pull-ups and push-ups and looking like a Hulk, She-Hulk, in a psych ward, breaking people's arms, basically psychotic, okay, at the beginning of T2. She now escapes with Arnold Schwarzenegger, the T1 model that got sent back to protect John Connor, right? And throughout this movie, these guys have one of the craziest battles, which would turn anybody mad. Basically trying to fight T-1000, the liquid metal Robert Patrick character. You go through all that, get to the end, which we all think is the end. Okay, the next, if they ever even make a Terminator, is going to be the future battle. And you're now trying to expect me to believe that a woman like that, who's been through what she's been through, is going to hitch up with some guy and be on the verge of getting married. And then because of the marriage proposal, is going to now leave. That doesn't make any sense. It actually doesn't make sense. Just on a character basis, it does not make sense. So I'm off the bat, within the first 5 minutes of this pilot, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. First of all, the last time I saw Sarah Connor, she looked pretty serious. Like Linda Hamilton's performance in T2. I mean, my God, this woman, you believed that this lady is doing what she's doing because she looked that crazy. I'm looking at the casting choice for Sarah Connor in this series and I'm like, wait a minute, how are you going to equate that with what we had before? Doesn't make any sense.